Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Learning Canadian English. I'm your host, Liam.
And I'm Chloe. Thanks for tuning in to episode 11. Today, we have a really important topic to discuss, especially as we mark the occasion in March. We're talking about International Women's Day in Canada.
That's right, Chloe. It's a day to celebrate the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. But it's also a call to action for accelerating gender parity. While it's an international day, we thought it would be fascinating to look at it through a uniquely Canadian lens.
Exactly. A lot of people might not know the history behind it. It didn't just appear out of nowhere. The earliest version was organized by the Socialist Party of America in 1909, but it quickly spread to Europe, with roots in the labor and suffrage movements.
The suffrage movements, right, the fight for the right to vote. And in Canada, the day has been celebrated since the 1910s, but it really gained momentum in the 60s and 70s with the rise of second-wave feminism.
And it wasn't until 1977 that the United Nations officially recognized it and began celebrating it as an annual event. Today, it's an official holiday in several countries, and while it's not a public holiday in Canada, it's widely recognized and celebrated.
So when we talk about women's rights in Canada, there's one story that every Canadian learns in history class. It's a huge part of our national identity and a massive step forward for women. I'm talking about the Persons case.
Oh, absolutely. The Persons case. You can't discuss Canadian women's history without mentioning the famous five.
For our listeners who might not know, could you give us a quick rundown, Chloe?
Of course. The famous five were five women from Alberta: Emily Murphy, Henrietta Muir-Edwards, Nellie McClung, Louise McKinney, and Irene Parleby. In the 1920s, only qualified persons could be appointed to the Canadian Senate.
And the government at the time interpreted persons as meaning only men.
Exactly. It was based on a very old British common law ruling. So these five incredible women challenged this interpretation. They took their case all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada.
And believe it or not, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled against them. They upheld the old interpretation.
Right, but they didn't give up. They appealed the decision to the highest court in the British Empire at the time, the Judicial Council of the Privy Council in London.
And on October 18, 1929, that court overturned the Canadian Supreme Court's decision. They ruled that the word persons did indeed include women. It was a landmark victory.
It really was. It not only allowed women to be appointed to the Senate, but also established the principle of what's called the living tree doctrine in Canadian constitutional law. This means the Constitution is organic and must be read in a progressive way to adapt to changing times.
The living tree doctrine. That's a great piece of Canadian vocabulary for our listeners. So the famous five were pioneers, but they are far from the only influential women in Canadian history.
Not at all. And their legacy is complex, as some of them held views on immigration and eugenics that are rightly condemned today. It's important to acknowledge the whole history.
That's a very important point, Chloe. Acknowledging the flaws of historical figures gives us a more complete and honest picture. Moving to more modern times, who is a Canadian woman that you think our listeners should know about?
Okay, well, there are so many to choose from, but I have to start with Viola Desmond. Her story is so powerful.
Ah, the woman on our $10 bill, a civil rights icon.
That's her. In 1946, in Nova Scotia, she refused to leave a whites-only section of a movie theater. This was 9 years before Rosa Parks' famous act of protest. Viola, a successful Black businesswoman, was arrested and fined.
Her court case was one of the first known legal challenges against racial segregation brought forward by a Black woman in Canada.
And while she lost her legal battles, her courage inspired the civil rights movement in Canada. In 2010, Nova Scotia granted her a posthumous pardon, and in 2018, she became the first Canadian woman to be featured on a regularly circulating banknote.
An incredible story of defiance and justice, even if it was delayed. Okay, so from civil rights, let's go to outer space. Dr. Roberta Bondar.
Yes, Canada's first female astronaut and the first neurologist in space. In 1992, she flew aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery. She conducted groundbreaking experiments on how the human body reacts to the low-gravity environment of space.
She became a hero for so many young Canadians, especially girls who wanted to get into science and technology, or STEM fields as we call them now. She showed that the sky, quite literally, is not the limit.
Totally. After her space career, she became an acclaimed nature photographer, continuing to inspire people through a different lens, a true multi-talented individual.
All right, how about the arts? We have to mention one of the world's most celebrated living authors who happens to be Canadian.
Margaret Atwood, of course, author of The Handmaid's Tale, The Blind Assassin, Alias Grace. The list is just incredible.
Her work often explores themes of gender, identity, and power in ways that are both profound and unsettling. The Handmaid's Tale has become a global symbol for women's rights and resistance movements.
It really has. Her writing holds a mirror up to society, and her voice on social and environmental issues is hugely influential. She is, without a doubt, a Canadian cultural treasure.
Okay, so we've covered law, civil rights, science, and literature. Let's finish with something quintessentially Canadian: hockey.
You must be talking about Hayley Wickenheiser.
Who else? She is widely considered the greatest female ice hockey player of all time. 4 Olympic gold medals, 7 world championship titles. Her record is just staggering.
She was a trailblazer, playing in men's professional leagues in Europe and constantly pushing for more resources and respect for the women's game.
And now, after retiring from hockey, she's become a medical doctor and works with the Toronto Maple Leafs hockey team in player development. She just never stops breaking barriers.
Speaking of breaking barriers, we can't forget the political arena. Canada had its first female prime minister, Kim Campbell, in 1993. While her time in office was brief, the significance of that achievement is undeniable. Speaking of breaking barriers, we can't forget the political arena. Canada had its first female prime minister, Kim Campbell, in 1993. While her time in office was brief, the significance of that achievement is undeniable. From politics to the world of music and activism, there's another powerful voice we have to talk about: Buffy Sainte-Marie. She is a true force of nature. It's an amazing second act to an already legendary career. So from the famous 5 to Viola Desmond, Roberta Bondar, Margaret Atwood, and Hayley Wickenheiser, it's an incredible legacy.
And we've barely scratched the surface. There's countless other women, politicians, scientists, artists, activists, athletes, and community leaders who have shaped and continue to shape this country.
That's the real point of International Women's Day, isn't it? To recognize those famous names, but also to celebrate the women in our own lives and communities who make a difference every day.
Well said, Chloe. It's about looking back with gratitude at the progress that's been made and looking forward to the work that still needs to be done to achieve true equality.
So, to all our listeners, we encourage you to look up these incredible women and maybe discover some other Canadian heroes and take a moment to thank the inspiring women in your own life.
That brings us to the end of episode 11 of Learning Canadian English. We hope you found it interesting and inspiring. Join us next time for another look into life and language here in the Great White North.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care.